Chapter 23. The Third Heaven and the Ninth Teacher. The Festival of Lights. Once the second seal was open, the way through the labyrinth was led by the unseen divine. The priest and artist stayed in the second heaven when a staircase led upwards to another guide. Standing before a gate, two doors opened. The new teacher appeared when she waved us over. "Who are you?" There in front of us was a serpent woman.
In the astral realm, I am known as a Naga, and I smuggle souls out of the confused world, which is called samsara. I take people beyond the border of the material world, and I only charge 10,000 a soul. If you're pregnant, that's 2 souls, so 20,000 in total. For handicapped people, 5,000. So let me know. Snacks not included,
said the serpent woman. What?
It's a joke, hon. I'm just kidding,
she said. It seemed to be that after every seal was opened, so came a quickening of our development. I'd gone into the second heaven alone, but now I'd come out connected to a dark woman, as if I was some sort of experiment. We'd go into one door, then out another exit, and there was no time to wonder what came next, because each step in this labyrinth was interconnected. Often, it felt like my soul was lingering in the clouds, and there was no way of knowing what could be inches in front of us, and so I found a way to feel my way through it. But all this while, I knew I was not separated from this dark woman. Where was she leading us? And who was this new serpent woman? How did I get out of my own body to get absorbed into the formless? It seemed this journey ahead was all connected to the intuition, and it barely mattered the thoughts I could think myself to be. Rather, there was something free within, and this was no longer an individual situation because she was within me. She led me beyond, through the serpent woman's gate, where there was a great mountain, and this was no mountain made by man. This was the peak from which all creation came from. It's where all things began. Not a physical mountain, of course, but maybe it was like a pyramid of divine levels. And once we walked through the gateway, it felt as if my body had been captured, and suddenly I wondered if this serpent woman was working on behalf of the devil.
I know what you're thinking, so why not say it out loud,
said the serpent woman. Are you Satan?
If I were Satan, then I'd want to stop people from reaching their full potential and fulfilling their ultimate purpose. And so I'd undermine their confidence, clarity, and motivation. And here's exactly how I'd do it. First, I'd create doubt, and then I'd plant seeds that make people second guess. This would cause them to feel failure and abandon their goals entirely. Next, I'd distract them, and I'd flood their lives with social media, unhealthy relationships, and unnecessary responsibilities. This would keep them unfocused on discovering the true nature of reality. Third, I'd encourage comparison, and I'd push them to be obsessed with their ego's individuality. This would fuel insecurity, jealousy, and a sense of inadequacy. Fourth, I'd foster isolation, and I'd encourage them to cut themselves off from supportive networks. Then fifth, I'd push them to indulge in short-term pleasures. Next, I'd promote comfort, and I'd lure them into complacency. And lastly, if I were Satan, I'd normalize mediocrity,
she said. Sounds like you've got it all planned out.
But that's the opposite of what I'm all about,
she said. But how do you know so much about Satan? Because everything you've just described has been put into place by our world governments, she smiled.
Because I'm the one who trapped him.
This woman's presence was beyond what I understood, and so this new realm held an unseen medium. Imagine walking upon sand, then entering into the ocean. It felt like we entered into a totally new experience. What are we doing here? And I hate to admit it, but there is a sense of fear I'm feeling, and so I have to acknowledge it. Should I be afraid of you, or is there something you've come to teach?
My teaching is called presence, as if you're being absorbed into the divine light. It's the pure potential that many know as the illumination of Christ. And so, welcome to the Festival of Lights,
she said. At once, thousands upon thousands of candles were illuminated. And where are we?
We've come into the cosmic reality, and this is the entrance into heaven number 3,
she said. Had I been blind before, while living with eyes? Because this limitless space was beyond what human nature could understand. Imagine finding yourself in such a limitless space, and this vastness seemed to be hidden within the soul of every woman and man. The serpent woman was always close, and I felt her breathing on our spine. She began to hold me when I felt two opposing forces come together to generate power, as these two forces of creation were intertwined. Like two sides of a magnet, this was the union of dualities, and I hadn't realized it at first, but when she rose higher, she'd taken hold of the soul and was hovering over us freely. What's happening?
This place is the inverse of Earth, and we never forget what a single soul does or says. I remember you because we met at the bottom of the underworld, and there I gave you our cosmic egg,
she said. What do you mean it's the inverse?
If you are cursed upon Earth, then here you are blessed. If you have had things stolen from you on the Earth, here you get everything back in full with interest. Have you been abandoned on Earth? Then I give you an embrace to remind you how much you're worth. If Earth had you feeling overwhelmed by misfortune, then this is the well of all spiritual fortune,
she said. Holy shit. So you're the opposite of Satan.
Sometimes the things we fear aren't what they seem to be. Even extreme opposites hold together all of totality in cosmic and divine harmony. Whatever you thought was working against you is working for you. We should say thank you to the great guides and guardians more often, since there are countless souls who look down and protect you,
she said. This serpent woman held me from all sides, and her hooded neck hovered over my head. How long had she been watching over me, and did she really know all that had ever been said?
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you,
she said. So this space is the inverse of life upon the earth that I was once used to?
Yes, and I've always protected you. It may feel like you've been away for what seems like forever, but the journey home is worth whatever the soul has to go through,
she said. Still in the embrace of this serpent, she expanded and contracted from all sides. Now my mind's eye of awareness opened so wide as she grew 1,000 times in size. She was giant and fierce, yet I was terrified of such an enormous serpent creature. How is this even possible? I thought heaven was filled with gentle and harmless teachers.
What you think is a belief system, which is a reflection of past thoughts and experiences that you've repeated to yourself over and over again. In order to reinforce new beliefs, we have to introduce new thoughts, even when they feel foreign,
she said. Then are you a beast?
Whether you call someone a hero or a beast is all relative to where the focus of that person's consciousness and intention may be. A hero of war on Earth who kills many may be a monster in God's eyes. So are they a hero really? And imagine someone who is called a beast of Earth. What if they're actually the one who sets all souls free? What if that person who was labeled as a beast is really the only person brave enough to battle Satan?
She paused.
I am what I am, and I am the third heaven's protector and guardian. And anyone who wishes to ascend upward through the seven heavens must pass by the guardians and gatekeepers before we let you in, she said.
What do you mean, pass by the gatekeepers? Are there many more of you?
Upon each new level of heaven, you will find a protector upon each gate. In Chinese mythology, some call us Pishu, which possess mythical powers capable of drawing spiritual energy from all directions to protect our spirit's higher fate. Take a moment to think of the levels you came from. Upon the first level of heaven, you met the divine essence, and if you were not open-hearted, that guardian would not have opened the first level of heaven and let you in. And as for the second level of heaven, you were greeted by Jesus and John the Baptist, and if you did not honor Jesus' sacrifice, then your soul would be required to live beneath the Son of God who redeemed us. The gatekeeper would find you, and there would be nothing you could do. It is not the proper selection of words that keeps us from getting into heaven, but rather it is based upon the actions we do. Isn't it so fascinating how everyone on earth seems to wish their way to God? But at each level of heaven, there are a set of protectors who are always on guard. Such protectors have been represented in marble or carved in stone upon the earth, as they are often situated outside of a temple or church. Although they are stone-like material representations, these monuments are much more than just signs or symbols. These statues summon the unseen to ward off evil spirits and entities, and we are summoned through mantras, chants, and holy prayers. For in this way, a protector may be summoned to an earthly site, and so a protector can be called to look after the church, tribe, or people, she said.
After some time in her embrace, we had to wonder what in the world we were doing here, because upon this strange occurrence, we had all sorts of past thoughts and memories appear. If she's been looking over us, then how has she helped protect the earth? Everywhere in the material existence, people were suffering, and the only guarantee of life is that at some point it's going to hurt. There is no guarantee of happiness, nor is there a guarantee of safe passage. That's when I came to my senses and asked, what exactly is going on with Earth's madness?
I'm holding the world up,
she said. Holding us up? From what?
We are holding life up after so many have fallen from the Garden of Eden. And isn't it interesting what's written in so many religions? They always seem to blame someone else besides the consequences of their own actions. Humanity wants to blame a serpent, or they'll call an evil force Satan. But where is the root to all the pain and suffering that has been caused? Isn't it humanity who is always responsible? Yet they want to blame a snake for stealing wisdom when they themselves hide it willfully. If man would have kept the garden the way it was, then all of us spirits, creatures, and humans would still be living peacefully,
she said. Then why do you embrace me?
to ease your anxieties, to put you in accord with the inevitable truth of life,
she said. And what's the truth of life?
that you were given a body, but this body is not yours. You get to use it for life, and so you spend your time living across the earth. And when the body is called to die, then you are held and welcomed as a soul. Be it above or below, the truth of life is that our spiritual nature is immortal. So after you die, and before you were born, your nature is the same, pure, true, and whole,
she said. Then the soul simply moves on to the afterlife. But then what is our purpose? What is a soul's reason for being alive?
the adventure. Are you going to say no to the adventure, or yes to the adventure of being alive?
She said. What do you mean, adventure? People are suffering down there. How dare you? Do you have any idea what humanity has been through?
What do you think is going on down there? People are discovering our true nature. But this comes through a process in which each soul must find a way to grow. A great transformation is underway, and we must discover the basic goodness within the human heart as we go through our awakening. No bureaucracy will transform earth into heaven, but a human heart, the heart of Christ, your heart, can do it. It takes only one heart to start the whole chain reaction,
she said. But there's so much pain. For God's sakes, there are demonic beings on earth, and how can there be so much despair in it?
Yet the pain doesn't last, and we still get through it. Have you noticed that there are no demons up here? Why not embrace me and release your fears and rest in heaven? On earth, people forget that we can remember, and the truth is there to remind us. It wakes us up as it transforms us, and as all bodies of life die, only the spirit within can open to the mystery of it.
She said. What mystery?
The mystery is the presence. It's in the moment right now. It's knowing that within you and all beings is the source we call the mystery of God. Don't dwell in the past. Don't get caught on what's ahead. Can you open to all of it right here? Can we be open to the experience that takes our soul onwards after death?
She said. After death?
Infinite life, releasing your grip on what we think of it. And instead of getting attached to the pain of the past, can you just flow along with us?
She said. Attached? But the people of earth want to be held in freedom and peace.
You are, as long as you can release,
she said. She held me with a very tight embrace, and so I started to let go. What I thought was holding me still was actually the current that was pulling me along. I realized we were in some sort of divine stream when my awareness changed, and instead of seeing life happening to me, I began to see that life was carrying me. Then what do you make of misfortune, pain, tragedy, and catastrophe? What is the reason for all of this upheaval that disrupts the peace?
It's releasing us from that which keeps us free. So open to the mystery. Open up and see. Look, 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 and look again. The soul goes for an adventure into a stream, through a body, and it's like a dream. Or is it death that's waking us up? And would you call death a disaster? But what if it's a masterpiece of exquisite proportions? What if you didn't accept or reject, push or pull, but simply open? That reveals the true nature when the soul has awoken,
she said. But death, what to make of it? There must be more that can be said of it. It's killing us.
No, it's liberating us, but you don't seem to get it.
She said. Get what?
There are many more places for a soul to go after death. It's the action into a soul's freedom. That's the adventure we forget, because the afterlife is not something a living body can get with.
She said. But what is the purpose of death?
It changes us. We let go of what's no longer needed for us.
She said. But I don't understand it.
Look, you can think of it this way. There are 7 spaces below and above the earth, and both are open for souls to pass through. No visa, no registration. It's so simple, so can you get with that?
She said. So what do you do to pass through?
All you do is open. Open the heart to love. Open the heart to what is true. Life on earth may seem to be haunted by death, but the truth is that there are great beings above and below you, looking out for you, and we exist to protect you.
She said. But what about the suffering of life, when people have to grow old? And what about when you're out of money and your car breaks down, or someone steals your savings, or the roof starts leaking from a pipe that's broken?
It's leading you, getting you closer to the edge of it. You're slowly starting to realize you have no choice but to dive right into the mystery of it. You must understand how this has happened to all of us, even the drudgery of it. When it feels like there's no mercy in it, there are spiritual beings above and below who are guiding us.
She said. But how?
You come into the world with nothing, and you're given everything. Then when death comes, you release all the pain and suffering, and you literally lose nothing. It's the ideas you're stuck with that make you think death is really destroying us. But rather, death is revealing and opening us into the heart of it. It strips us of everything that holds us back until we depart from our bodies and travel with the speed of light back to the truth of it.
She said. But then what the hell should I make of the demonic beings upon the earth, like the warlords or pedophiles who are lost in their own ego desires? What should a person do if they get stuck in a dark situation where terrible things start to transpire? What if a man or woman finds themselves in an abusive marriage? Then how in the world do you help them?
We awaken into one. We open into love. After enough time, the soul goes on, whether it's below or above. Everything depends on our actions, and it's our actions that change the course of our lives. And once you pass on from the body, then we offer the relief after the body dies.
She said. But I'm tired of Earth's meat prison. Have you ever seen the corruption in politics? All of our so-called leaders are really inside traitors, as they mismanage our policies, all while they make millions. Who can you even trust to do fair and honest work? It seems like everyone will rip you off so that they can get more cash. I don't know who you can count on anymore. The world has become overrun with a capitalistic man. The disparity of wealth in the world is unfathomable, while the world seems to be weighed down by enormous amounts of debt. And we have to fight through this while looking ahead at our inevitable death. Not to mention, everyone we ever love is also going to die. And everything we ever touch is in the process of falling apart. So I don't know how anything you're saying can be justified.
From the view of the material world, suffering must seem so terrible. Of course, the material construct will dissolve, and so it's our opinions on the matter that make it seem unbearable. Yet those with millions or billions, with all the so-called comfort and material pleasure, know that it's going to end, and so by the revelation of change, they'll also have to face the fierce type of deathly pressure. The truth is that all this extra material stuff is just fluff. It's actually weighing the soul down. And those who endure the most amount of suffering are in truth preparing to meet something profound. Not everyone ascends to heaven. There are gates for a reason. And those who lie, cheat, or steal will be trapped in the material world in the cycle of suffering. The point of heaven is to be freed from the earth, and you can only be freed when you release, open, and let go. So when you see or meet someone who endures a great amount of hardship in earthly existence, we can understand that on a spiritual level, they are undergoing tremendous spiritual growth. Whereas those who have easy lives on earth are only getting more and more attached. Then when death comes, they cling and refuse to surrender to the nature of spirit, and so they do not easily ascend to heaven. They're attached to earth, where their soul stays at. Then after they die, their soul searches for a new body, vessel, or egg from which their old soul will be hatched. Again they go through the process of birth and death. But again and again, they live lives over and over until their soul gets unstuck. What seems as unfair and unjust on the material plane is actually more like sandpaper for the spiritual soul. Sure, it feels like friction and tension, but it's helping us surrender to the things that are out of our individual control. Any material things gained in life are extra, since you came into the material world with nothing but a spiritual soul. And so everything you get is everything you must also detach from and let go. So many people get stuck on what they own. They get stuck on what they think is theirs. But truly, heaven is divine freedom of love, and so some call it home, while others call it Om. When a soul opens their heart and spiritual eye, the material world is just an illusion. And then you start to see that people are lost as they battle and fight. The whole purpose of a material body is to take the soul upon a living adventure with the aim of spiritual evolution. So the people who are going through the most suffering on earth are actually spiritually blessed. This earthly pain allows them to release and surrender to the ways of the spiritual world, and this prepares them for heaven after death. For those souls that do not understand this fact, then they are still trapped in the material world. They are born in life so confused as they try to realize what they're doing, but they forget how they are trapped in an endless cycle of death and rebirth. After enough suffering comes, we awaken. Then the soul undergoes a great transformation. This leads to a detachment from the material plane, and so a soul opens into the freedom of heaven. This adventure is great, and it is beyond the ways of a cheating world. This path far exceeds the lure of mansions, cars, or any type of wealth that can be earned. For in the material world, there is but one fact, and that's the revelation of change. No matter how much you make or how great you think you are, in time all things change. The man who was once a king will soon become an ant, and the man who ripped off thousands of people while in politics will have to live and serve every victim they've cheated as they endure their own scams. A soul cannot escape its past actions. It is the way of divine design. Everything we feel, experience, or gain in the material world is extra, and so in time, we must come back to discover our spiritual nature, which is the truth of life,
she said. But I thought heaven was like a reward, or something like a great treasure. I have heard whispers of how religions claim that in heaven awaits 72 virgins or 80,000 servants.
The ego would make you think you deserve a great reward. But the trap of the material world is that you think it's all about you. Yet when you look up, all the stars in the universe glow from above to reveal the real truth. That it's all a festival of lights, and that festival has always been surrounding you. Every star is one soul's offering. It's a gift to the universe. And there the ancient souls dance between the stars, whispering, "Come join the luminous." This allows us to understand how an individual is just a tiny speck, and all of creation is the living force. The purpose of it all is to go upon an adventure and to spread our light. It is in the discovery and the realization of our experience we know that life is the pure reward. Yet this discovery of heaven is not something you keep. It is something we discover. This essence of divine creation has been in our hearts all along, and it also exists within all others. Once you release your attachments to your name, your fame, your money, your job, and your worth, only then do you start to realize the true nature behind a spiritual soul's birth. Do not be misguided by material things, and do not be let down by the apparent sufferings of our world. For the noblest beings to have ever lived are the ones who have endured. By enduring great hardship, you get very intimate with the true nature of the soul's actual reality. Suddenly you begin to ease your grip on how you want things to be, and here we open to the natural flow, where we touch what it means to become free. Death is a big squeeze, and although it may seem intimidating, it's actually a re-release. If your soul is attached to the world, then you stay there. Yet it seems that those who have suffered greatly can more easily surrender and submit into freedom and peace. This is how a soul finds heaven, but only after you've had enough. Everyone who clings to their identity, their passions, their desires, or their pursuits, well, they end up getting thrown back,
she said. But about the suffering, I just don't understand why it has to hurt so bad.
You still don't see it. Don't you understand? You've got protection on all four sides of you, looking down upon the real you, the true you. And so what you call death is actually the required step that elevates us. In this process, on the journey, death actually enlivens us. So cheer up. Death is totally safe. It's like taking off a tight shoe. You leave the old body to enter into the spiritual realm, which is totally fresh and new. We learn we were getting carried across the part we thought was treacherous. And as time passes, we remember what it is that lives within us and around us. And so we notice we have four protectors along with us. These four guardians look over the soul's four sides. So just remember, we don't die, we rise. That's why they call it the afterlife,
she said. So what is death?
It's a level up,
she said. Is that right? So how should we live then?
Zazen.
She paused.
Zazen is not meditation. It is not a mental exercise or a thing you do with your mind. It is not focused on practices that are antidotes to afflicted states or secondary consciousness. It is not about attaining a special state, being relaxed, or solving your worldly problems. It is not about reducing stress, being happy, or working with trauma. Nor is it associated with visualizations or phrases to nurture certain qualities of the mind. It is about being radically open to things just as they are, not grasping at or rejecting any phenomenon, but simply being present and at ease, moment to moment, with uncertainty and groundlessness. It is fully embodied presence, with no separation between the mind, heart, and body. Then through the context of our lived experiences, we allow openness, which is called not knowing. We deconstruct our old version of reality. It is the method of no method. Nothing extra, nothing added,
she said. You make it sound so simple, but why can't I understand why there's so much suffering upon the earth? Can't you just make us release our attachments and free us from all that hurts? I think of what my family has undergone, and I think of what the entire world has endured. Please, you must relieve the suffering that pins the soul down upon the confused world. I feel so deeply for this. Please bring forth the great relief of all suffering. I beg you, please.
Sure, but it takes an offering,
She said. I blinked in shock. Was she really going to help? What type of offering?
Your offering is your life. Your life is your message. It's all an offering, and that offering can get you into heaven,
She said. Yes, then can we bring the world to heaven?
To get to heaven, you've got to walk past hell first. That means you've got to go down to the earth and take another birth. It's the way of every teacher and guardian that you'll meet in the 7 heavens, as we all took some kind of journey down through the lower 7 spheres, and our offering was a trip to hell and back through a great discovery. And the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Skillful souls gain their reputation from great storms and tempests.
She said. What are you getting at?
Unless you've touched the bottom of the below, heaven is not something you would know. But since you're almost at the end of it all, I'll give you a hint. This is called going to zero,
She said. Now I stayed silent because I believed she was starting to dance. Only when I released it all did she seem to release me, and there I focused upon her as I went into a sort of trance. All that I received from her was grace, and as I received that love, we turned it into veneration. She was beyond what I could fathom, and so I saw this serpent woman as another manifestation, as the flowing essence of creation.
Allow yourself to take the journey to zero. That's the whole point of death. Then see what it is that you've got left. That's called going to zero. It's an offering in the flesh. Go to zero because there's nowhere else to go. You may say you're from a city, state, or nation, but that's because Earth looks after the soul on a journey as we seek to understand the truth of creation,
She said. So going to zero isn't bad, but rather it sounds like a requirement. What do you make of this?
It's rather exciting, isn't it? Going to zero is not bad, but rather, all of life upon the earth is destined for this path. That's why death is every human's destiny. That way, we can know freedom at last. After life, we are restored and filled up. We rise if we're ready to be released. And so Jivamuktis are those living souls in a body who are liberated and freed. As Jesus said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. We are reuniting with the spirit before birth. This is our immortal spiritual nature before we found a body upon the earth. Going to zero means we reunite with this essence, and so we are not bothered by material things. We do not fear what we may lose, and we do not celebrate what we may seem to gain. It's all one, and because of this, we have zero fears. We are simply open to everything that is, and so we are open to what's in front of us, right here,
She said. As she embraced me one last time, she laid my body flat. What's happening now?
Corpse pose. Just relax.